waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sign of the Times. I want to thank you for allowing us to join you tonight on what is a most memorable day in our nation, a day that we will never forget, a day that we remember one of the most dreadful, heart-wrenching days in American history, September 11th, 2001. I'm sure most of us that were alive at that time remember exactly where we were, what we were doing when we received the news that Tower 1 was hit, Tower 2. We remember where we are. We remember that dreadful day. Tonight, we take a moment and we remember those that were lost, whether you knew someone that was there or whether or not we remember the impact of it and how it impacted our lives. Our lives would never be the same. Tonight, we have a special show. We want to remind you, thank you for joining us, those that are watching via Facebook, those that are watching via our YouTube live channel. Thank you for joining us tonight for a special show. This is a special show. Last week was an amazing show as Blakely Bates was on and we talked about voting. Tonight, we're going to take it up another level. We have a special guest tonight. Before we bring our co-host, Minister Kim Richardson, and our guest, Devontae Wilson, on, I want to take a moment as we enter this election season, as we enter this time of voting, to remind you, my brothers and sisters, especially on a day like today. A day like today reminds us of what we can do when we come together. It reminds us of what we can do when we band together as a nation. It's amazing that just in 19 years, 19 short years, the span of a young person being born and graduating high school and going off to college, how our nation has gone from banding together to fight every foe to now being separated and divided and fighting one another. Long after this election is over, we still have to live together. Long after whoever is in the White House is sworn in on Inauguration Day in January, we still have to live together. So let's band together. Let's love one another. Let's survive. Let's get along. Thank you. Let's get to it tonight. Let's bring on our co-host tonight, Minister Kim Richardson, and our guest tonight. He is the president of the Young Democrats of North Carolina, Mr. Devontae Wilson. Thank you for joining us. Minister Richardson, again, as always, and Mr. Wilson, thank you for joining us tonight. You guys, it's beautiful, as Mr. Rogers used to say, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and thank you guys for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. How's everybody?
Doing great tonight.
All is well.
All right. Let's jump right into it. This is going to be a powerful show. I'm excited about tonight. We talk to Minister Richardson every week. She's always here. But Mr. Wilson, thank you again for joining us. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background and what has impacted your life. It's an honor to be able to talk to you as the president of the Young Democrats. The reason why is because one of our topics last week, we were talking about voter apathy and how we have to do something to educate and train the next generation of voters who feel as though my vote really doesn't matter, my vote doesn't count. What impact you to get in to become interested and become involved in the political process and remain currently involved doing all this chaos that's going on in our country?
Right. Well, so much to unpack in those questions there. Let me first begin just by saying thank you so much for the invitation. I certainly don't take it lightly at all. So to start on the back end, and we'll just kind of unpack from there. My name is Devontae Wilson. I'm 26 years old. I'm, again, a native of Eastwood, North Carolina, by way of Moore County. Again, proud Taurus. I'm the oldest of four. I have one younger sister, three younger brothers. I'm the only one that kind of took the political governmental route. And so everyone else is kind of big into sports and all of that. And so, of course, we support them the best way that we can. When I'm not on the trail helping to elect Democrats up and down the ticket, I'm also a middle school educator. I actually teach at my alma mater. So I'm one of the 2% of African-American male teachers at Southern Middle School in Moore County as well. So shout out to the Dragons. So I'm extremely excited to serve in that capacity as well. Again, what really, my background, what really got me involved in politics, honestly, is not too much different. And it's kind of sad to say, not too much different from the stories that we usually hear about our African-American young men. If the truth really be told, from what society probably deems as the rubric for Black men that won't make it, I fit the rubric if that be the case. I'm coming from a single parent home where it's with a single mom, and they had me when they were like 15 or 16 years old. So of course, father's not involved, and you go into being in these environments that don't necessarily enhance who you potentially can be, but God had another plan for me. And so, I've always kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. Even when I was about 12, 13 years old, I would be telling my mom, I'm going to be in public office one day, and not knowing what that means. Because I knew that my environment wasn't conducive to the potential that dwells inside of me. And so I know that to be not only the testimony of me, but I can't help but think about so many others. And so originally, I actually wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be a Supreme Court judge. I ended up going back home to Moore County. I graduated from UNC Greensboro with a political degree in political science, pre-law, and a history minor. And I'll be graduating from Liberty University y'all actually the first to hear this. I'll actually be graduating from Liberty University in December with a master's in divinity, Christian ministries, and Christian leadership. And I just got my acceptance letter 2 weeks ago from Liberty for the doctorate program in educational leadership. And part of my job that I know is a part of what I've been called to do is to help recruit a very diverse education platform in the terms of our teachers, because I understand that when we have diverse teachers and then we are that fit the students that are coming into our classrooms, then we're only enhancing our generation, and not only a generation now, but a generation to come. And so one of the things that I've been doing, and I spend a lot of time thinking, how do we stay sane in the chaos, right? How do we stay sane in the chaos? And the biggest thing that I tend to think about and it's so funny with today being 9/11. In fact, I was teaching my students today that in every generation, there are certain historical events that take place that shape that generation, or that might be the trademark of that generation that future generations may not be able to understand. So, for example, the students that I teach today were born in 2008, 2009. They were not here in 2001 when 9/11 took place. I was in second grade. Even then, I wasn't fully mentally aware of what was going on, but I knew something was wrong because of the mood of the school that took place when we got word of it. I was not born in the 60s when there was 1965 specifically, when the Voting Rights Act was passed. I've never experienced Jim Crow laws where there was black schools and white schools and black water fountains. I didn't go through that. I didn't live during the early or late 19 teens during the Spanish flu. And now it seems like we're getting a little taste of that with COVID-19, with another worldwide pandemic. Right. Again, I can continue to name so many different eras I was not in, but I can focus on the one that I'm currently in. I am here to say that I was born during the time then we had our first African-American president. I am here to say that I was born during a time where we had Hillary Clinton, who was the first woman to ever win a national party nomination for president of the United States. And now with Kamala Harris being the first woman of color to attain that same nomination, except for vice president of the United States for the Democratic Party. And so what I tend to think about is this. There's a saying I kind of developed during my time as an Air Force cadet was wherever there's one, as long as there's one, you can't say all. I choose to believe that people are not as cynical, that our society is not as cynical as the pundits lead us to believe. Now, at the end of the day, we understand that people like things that get ratings. People, this is the era now of, reality TV, and it's really not that reality at all. It's kind of scripted reality.
Right.
But if you really look behind the scenes at the bipartisan efforts that take place, that doesn't get good media. If anything, you don't hear about that a lot. You mainly just hear about those 10% of issues that cause a lot of division, such as abortion and gay rights and women's rights. You mainly hear about that, but you don't hear about the other efforts that are being done on a bipartisan effort. And so it just kind of feeds, into, I think, further polarization of our nation. And so to even further get to your question there, so the question then becomes, so why a Democrat? Why? I don't think anyone really just asks those questions there. I think people automatically assume all Black people have to be of the Democratic Party, and that's not the case. So I like to a lot of times go ahead and diffuse those rhetorics, those narratives, those rumors out there, and tell folks I'm a proud Democrat by choice. And when I became a Democrat, it was not because my family is mainly Democrat. I couldn't care less about that. There's a book called The Social Citizen by Betsy Sinclair, and she talks about this, how people oftentimes vote based on the pressures of their surroundings, whether that be their homes, their families, just this feeling of acceptance. That wasn't my story. I literally sat down and I went through the issues, in terms of economic policy, in terms of social issues, which party really cares about people. And again, after much studying and much focus on the facts, that ended up being the Democratic Party. And so I couldn't be more proud of the party that I serve. Now, are we perfect? Listen, for one party to say they have all the answers is complete ignorance. We don't have all the answers. The Republican Party does not have all the answers. I'm proud of the Democratic Party because we are known as being the big tent party. And so what does that mean? You can be pro-life and still be a Democrat. You can be pro-choice and still be a Dem. But part of the concern that I really have, and honestly, if the truth be told, sometimes, and I'm known for saying this in our state party, that we can sometimes have the habit of fracturing ourselves internally. So it's almost like, in other words, saying, if you don't agree with me 100% on these issues, then you must be against me. And my thing is, we're not robots. We're a democracy. We're allowed to reason. We're allowed to debate. We're allowed to come together based on facts, not just because your mama said it and your daddy said it, and they probably heard it from somebody else. Most of the time when I'm speaking with folks, if you're telling me what someone else said, I have already tuned you out. I need to know, did you read? What are your primary sources? I don't need secondary sources. I need primary sources. Who did you go to? What did you read? What did they say? Because oftentimes people get lost in their own interpretations, and now you're giving out these mixed messages, and now future generations don't even know what to think when they look back at this time. And now I'm thinking about, as a middle school teacher, I teach 12 and 13-year-olds. In a matter of 5-6 years, they'll be able to vote. And in my mind, I'm sitting here wondering, it's a problem for me when I'm teaching students who are 13 and 14, but still read at lower levels, lower school levels. And so you wonder why I'm a Democrat, because I'm fighting for money to be in our education system, that we're continuing to enhance, not take money away from education, but continue to enhance education. That's the problem. I teach at a Title I school, and a lot of folks, I have to educate them. Title I has nothing to do with grades. It has everything to deal with those who may receive free or reduced lunches. That's where that title comes from. And there's this rhetoric that people think, oh, they're low, they're dumb. No, they're not. They're some of the brightest people. I came from one. And yet, out of the Young Democrats in North Carolina, we are approaching, we're on the road to 100 years. And if I'm not mistaken, I think out of those 100 years, I may be the fourth. I believe I'm the fourth African-American male to ever serve in this capacity. Those that have served in this capacity includes our Governor Jim Hunt. Other people who have been chapter presidents include Governor Roy Cooper. I can go to folks like Courtney Crowder and Democratic strategist Courtney Crowder and Conan Morgan, just prominent names. Our current state party chair, Wayne Goodwin. Wayne Goodwin. He has served in this capacity. Representative Zach Hawkins of Durham has served in this capacity. So I stand on the shoulders of giants who are truly for the folks. And I know that was a lot. I was trying to make sure I hit every part.
You're fine.
I was trying to make sure I hit every part of the question. But I think there are some conversations that we need to have in this country. And if you're so concerned about getting votes, if you're so concerned about polls that you're not willing to be uncomfortable, then that's the problem. Because here's my thing. At the end of the day, my pastor and bishop, who's gone on to be with the Lord, he once told me one time, he said, son, whatever you do, realize this. There's two things that's going to happen to everybody, regardless of party, regardless of affiliation, regardless of race, regardless of gender. You were born and you're going to die. And what you want to have said about you at your funeral, or when you see whomever you believe in, there has to be some kind of moral compass that holds you accountable. There has to be something there. And my concern is that if I lose my integrity, I lose myself.
Right.
And that's honestly a concern for me, to where sometimes, if I can be very honest, I sometimes even wonder the level of government of offices that I could even potentially obtain, because there are just some things I won't compromise. Listen, I actually care about my, what will happen when I'm no longer in public office, because I'm going to be held accountable for every word I said. I'm going to be held accountable for votes I've casted. And I need to know that I did it truly with the best intentions of people and not for personal self-interest. And unfortunately, we are seeing that happen in our political system, especially with the current president of the United States, and he will have to be held accountable for that. So again, a lot to say. I can continue to go, but I know you have
plenty to talk about. Don't worry. We got.
I will mention on the back end, I am a preacher as well, so I know how to talk. I've been ministering since I was 12. For those that don't know, I was called to ministry at the age of 12. I'm 26. I've been in ministry going on 14 years. I was a little Bible prodigy at the time, so I know how to talk. So you have to shut me up sometime.
Well, I think all three of us have that problem tonight.
We're all guilty of that. We have something in common, young sir, and that we both are a middle school teacher, and I was a middle school history teacher. And yes, I taught children with the understanding that, in about 5 years, you're going to be voting. You're going to be entering into the workforce. And are you just going to be a consumer, or are you going to be able to make a difference? I do have a question for you tonight. I was doing my history. I went back and I was looking into it. And there's so many things that we hear, and we're hearing more and more often every day. Coming from our millennials at age of 18 to 35, they're saying to us, well, why vote? Because they feel like their vote is going to be lost in the divisiveness that's taking place in the country today. From your point of view, can you speak on that, the voter apathy?
People have grown numb to, and it's sad to say, I think people are starting to grow numb to the foolishness and chaos and lack of leadership that we're seeing in Washington, and not just Washington, but also in our state, at our state level, in Raleigh and across all over the country. Accountable leadership is responsible leadership, and when you have people who are in office who are not held accountable, then they're not being responsible. And so you have a lot of people who are slowly starting to lose faith in our system. When you hear breaking news talking about voter suppression, I mean, you have the Republican side who are constantly taking away voting precinct sites, and we're seeing people on camera that are throwing away ballots. I mean, you remember what took place in 2018 with the Dan McCready race, and how you had folks that were just going around taking ballots and they weren't being properly counted and accounted for. And now, what do you think that does to people who aren't like me, who are embedded into this? Because I'm a political scientist, so I see this whole thing differently. But if you look at the ordinary everyday individual, they're not going to see it through the same lens. And so now they're going to start growing this feeling of, am I being heard? Because every 4 years, and I've even criticized my own party for this, don't just come to people every 4 years. You need to be consistent on a day-to-day basis. And if you are not being consistent, that contributes to the apathy. When people need to see you every day, or at least every week, or hear from you every month. And I'm proud to say that our state party has actually been doing a really good job with that, from local level all the way up to state level. And I'm proud of that. But what are you doing? And I tell this even to candidates. I tell candidates the exact same thing. Don't just go to church, because see, that's how it comes off as looking like pandering. When you only go to certain ministries or circles and you only have one message. So, for example, if you're only ever talking about immigration in the Latino population, That's wrong, because who's to say that they don't care about Medicaid expansion and education for their kids? That's not all they want to hear, but you assume that's all they want to hear, and that's not right. You have to include the entirety of the individual themselves. And until people can start to be more consistent, until messaging is the same across the board, and not only that, I mean, granted, there is a method to it, that we are sharing a message of talking about the issues that affect people, but we have to be very careful of our own bias. We have to be very careful of our own prejudgments, because that can really mess us up, and that can also contribute to apathy as well. And then, of course, just how many times have we seen people in office say they're going to do one thing, and then next thing you know, they're doing something else, right? And so that also contributes to voter apathy. That also contributes to voter apathy as well. And honestly, if I can really be honest, people are apathetic, and for a good reason, and I understand. I do understand, because some people don't even understand how the Electoral College works. How is it that Hillary Clinton got a whole lot more votes, popular vote, but yet we ended up with Donald Trump? Like, how in the world? And so some folks begin to wonder, does my vote really count? I can't begin to tell you how many elections have been given away to the Republican Party, all but between maybe 2 and 4 votes per precinct. Precinct. Right. A lot of times these races are determined just by a couple of votes per precinct. But if we are not sharing that message, if we are not getting out there pounding the pavement, and no, not just when it's time for elections, you need to go out there and reach out to folks when they're at the laundromat. Hey, do you need a couple of quarters? Can I help you take your trash out? Are you listening? Are you reaching out to the elderly community? Folks that probably can't move around like they used to anymore. And at the end of it all, I can't help but think about Colonel John McDonnell. He was one of my he was one of my Air Force commanders when I was a cadet at Air Force at A&T State University. And he said something to me one time. He pulled me into the office, and Colonel McDonnell said, "Cadet Wilson, there's something about you. I don't know what it is, but I want to share some advice with you." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Remember this. If you take care of your people will take care of you." That stuck with me. Because my grandfather, he's from, my grandfather, who I'm blessed to still have alive with me today, he's from, of the Free Will Baptist Association. But when he was coming up, and this is a time when older men, when they, when they really had to, a lot of times they couldn't go to high school or college. They may have to drop out at elementary school or middle school, what have you, and they went to work. And all they ever asked for people in government who represented them was, "Do you hear me? Like, do you really hear me?" And I think a lot of people are just feeling apathetic to voting because they don't feel heard. In fact, with all of these riots and things that's going on, in fact, Dr. King said it best, that riots are just voices of the unheard. That's not necessarily saying that you condone the violence, but you do condone the fact that they are expressing anger from not being heard. Charlotte Chisholm said something one time, and I absolutely loved it. She said that change doesn't happen, and I'm paraphrasing here. She said, change doesn't happen by you sitting idly on the sidelines. She said, you have to actually get in there to implement the change itself. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to people, it's the same thing with my students. I can't teach you motivation, and it breaks my heart. I can't teach you that. I don't know where it comes from. I'm wired differently. Perhaps some other folks are. I can't teach that. But what we can do is expose. If we can expose people to a better way of life, of how government is supposed to operate, if we can expose people to conversations that your representatives are having, and it's not name calling and mudslinging, but it's actual mature conversations. Come, let us reason together. Come, let us reason together. When people see that, then I truly believe people will begin to gain the confidence in not only local elections, but all the way up. Because again, of course, midterm elections, which deal with Congress, are extremely important. Right. Those typically always have lower voter turnout rates. Presidential years, we always expect higher turnout rates because of COVID. We're going to see how this works. And then it doesn't help when you have the other side constantly fighting Democratic efforts to expand vote by mail. And because some folks don't feel comfortable going to the polls because of the virus. So when you try to take money from that or fight in the efforts of that, what perception are you giving? And nobody thinks about this stuff. And some stuff you ain't got to go to school for. Some stuff is downright, common sense if you care about people. But that's just me. I was raised up in a household of care folks.
Yeah. All right, listen, we're going to do this. We have another guest with us, but I want to do this. I want us to take a moment to catch your breath. We're going to add another guest in a moment, but I want us to take just a moment, take a minute, get some water, take a couple minutes. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about this next generation. It's something we need to talk about, how we're going to reach out and include and empower this next generation, because their focus may be off. And I want to deal with something that you just talked about with the riding. Let's take a moment, catch a breath. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I wanted to take a time out just to talk to you and solicit your support. I need your help. Not too long ago, one of our best shows that we've ever had was dealing with the topic from suicide to success. During that show, we had a special guest, a young man named DeMarcus Huff. The following week, his mom came on and we talked with a lot of people, and your interaction is what made it such a powerful show. During that show, he talked about how he went from having a gun to his head to owning one of the most powerful, successful businesses in the Rockingham, Charlotte area, Sly's Famous Diner, home of the legendary lemon pepper chicken. My daughter and I took the drive and went to support them and to see firsthand is what he was talking about really true. And it was true. Not talking about the food, which was, as we say, off the chain. What was true is that one of the things that DeMarcus said that they do is that they take care of the homeless. We saw firsthand a homeless person wandering up. DeMarcus pull over on the side of the road and offer his assistance in feeding them. That was powerful. My friends, we need your help. DeMarcus said that that's what they do. They feed the homeless. Homelessness is an epidemic in this country. It's something that's oftentimes swept under the carpet. We think that homelessness means sleeping on a grate, but it doesn't have to mean sleeping on a grate. You can be homeless living in a hotel, or living with a family member means that you're homeless. I need your help because during this holiday season, Sign of the Times would love to, and we're going to partner with Sly's Family Diner and feed the homeless. I need your help because we made a commitment. The cost of one meal is just $7. $7. You can't get a good Subway meal with a sandwich, chips and fries, and chips and drink for that amount. $7. We need your help as we want to feed 100 homeless people during the holiday season. I need 100 people. Well, let me take that back. I need 98 because my daughter and I have vowed to take care of 2. So I need 98 people to just donate $7 to help feed a homeless person. It would be a shame for us to sit down at Thanksgiving and eat turkey and collard greens and ham and macaroni and cheese and dinner rolls and sweet potato and pumpkin pie and potato salad and cranberry sauce while someone is rummaging through a trash can or waiting behind a diner to throw away some food to eat. We have a moral obligation. We have a responsibility. We are our brother's keeper. I need your help. You see the Cash App scrolling on the bottom of the screen. I need for you, my friends, to hit that Cash App. We're going to put DeMarcus's Cash App. You can bypass us and just send it to them. Just let them know that it's coming on behalf of Sign of the Times. We want to do this. We need your help. Let's band together. During difficult, unprecedented times that we've never seen before, we have to learn how to give and to plant our seed during the time of famine. That's how we get the increase, by sowing in the time of famine. So I'm asking you again, whatever terminology you want to use, whether it's called giving, sowing, donating, whatever it is, $7 to help feed the homeless during this holiday season. We're going to get it done. I want your help. I need your help, my friend. I don't care if you give 7, 21, 14, 35, 49, 70, 63, any multiple. You can give the entire 700 if you want. Let's do this. We need your help. We're going to get it done, and we're going to get it done together. Thank you so much for your support. All right. We've already got people giving, so join us as we're going to partner to feed the homeless this holiday season. Just $7, my friends, $7. Want to say welcome to Blakely Bates, who was with us last week. Thank you for joining us, sir. let's talk about something, Mr. Wilson. We want to talk about getting our young people involved. And you said that Dr. King said that writing was the voice of the unheard. I want you to sit right there and watch this. And let's talk about this in regards to how we can get our young people involved come November or October when the voting starts. Let's look at this and let's talk about this perspective.
Right now, you got a city riot going on because once again, the police has failed to protect us like they say they was going to do. Us as a community, we're not going to protect ourselves, but if we don't have anyone to protect us, then this is what you get. You get riots. You got people out here going crazy. We losing loved ones every day to the people that's sworn in to protect us. It's not us. It's the police. This the madness that they spark up. This is what they encourage. This is what they provoke. This is what you get out of you taking a loved one from someone. This is what you get. You get a lot of people that's hurt, and they can't vent the right way. They can't no longer depend on the police to be here to protect us like they say they gonna do. So this is what you get. And no, it's not gonna end today. I can't tell you it's gonna end tomorrow. I don't know when it's gonna end. But it's for y'all to start. We're not the ones that's killing us. Y'all killing us. We can't make a change if y'all don't change. Right now, you got a city riot going on. Right now,
you know, I watched that young man. You're a middle school teacher, Minister Kim's middle school teacher. I'm a behavior specialist with middle school students, middle school football, head football coach. We deal with kids this age. What do you think about this? This is their perspective. How do we get them to take their passion to the voting polls and to the streets to help, even if he's not of age to vote? How do we get them involved?
You create opportunities for them.
So this actually,
I was going to say you create opportunities for them within your school environment to start building up their community. In the middle school, that's when we did our recycling programs. That's when we did peer tutoring. That's when you make a person fall in love with and enable them by empowering them, by showing them some system of ownership, they tear it up because they don't own anything. So you have to start, first of all, that's where I would start. Is start it within your own environment. Let them build up some pride in their own home. It's not the thing. This is going to take a whole entire village, y'all, with what we're talking about. These items that we're talking about is systemic. When you go back and look at your history and you look at the amendments and you look at how this country was set up, they set the slaves free, but they had no plan for them. So then the laws had to change to make a plan for Black people coming into this country and actually being part of this country. You have anger because nobody owns anything. People don't tear up their own stuff. Everybody else owns something. So that's where I would start from my point of view.
Mr. Wilson?
You know, and this kind of ties back into the previous question about voter apathy. The word is trust. The trust is broken. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be extremely honest with you. The trust is broken. We know it's not all offices. We know that. And we know it ain't all Black people. We know that too.
Right.
We're not naive that there are folks on the force that do things that are unethical. But we're also aware on the other side, there are sometimes folks who may react in ways they shouldn't. Let's just go and put that out there.
That's right.
I looked at that video. Here's what gets me. Before you even listen to what he said, the technicality of what he was saying, look at his facial features, his eyes. The trust is, he's hurt.
He was hurt, right.
And for good reason. If you watch that and you weren't pricked some kind of way, something wrong. something is wrong.
You can hear it in his voice.
You can hear it.
Mhm.
You can hear it in his voice. He said, y'all aren't protecting us, and that's what you were swore to do. Do the job.
Mhm.
So now it comes to, there's going to have to be a huge, and I don't know how, and there's no cookie cutter method to this, so I'm not going to present one because every county is different. In Moore County, we actually have a pretty strong community relation with our police department because they've been involved in the community with the Boys and Girls Club, doing things with inside the schools to community baseball teams and stuff. But that's not every county. There's no need in our county for a police review board, but in Durham they need one. In Raleigh and Charlotte, that's very different. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to try to present a cookie cutter method because every place is different. But my thing is this. And this is what I said earlier about bias. If you are going off how somebody looks, oh, they must be a criminal because how they dress. Okay, now you got to look at what are you constantly seeing, and are you equating what you have seen and equated to evil to what they're wearing? And so before you even get to know them, you have already prejudged them. And so now the question is, how do we rebuild this road? Or rather build a road, because let's just face it, throughout the history of our nation, there's always been this distrust between law enforcement and folks. So if we're trying to be more progressive and move forward, how do we do this? Well, one, representation. Representation on the police force is overwhelmingly white. Okay, overwhelmingly white, and overwhelmingly white and male. That's number one. So we need to get with these police commissioners, need to get with these mayors and figure out what are some ways that you can, and what are some things that you can do to help diversify your police force, because your police ought to look like the community that you're policing. Your police officers, they ought to know some of the residents by their first name. Every time they come, you shouldn't just scrunch up every time you see somebody strolling by, because if you do, you're living in fear.
Right.
And if the truth be told, you're also starting to live in the shadows of what our ancestors also lived in as well. It's just packaged differently. So now the question being, given that context of how do we take this and mobilize folks to the polls, understanding that every election matters. For example, sheriff is an elected position. Mm-hmm. I'm going to even go this far. Because everybody looks at the president and the governor and the Senate and the House. You need to focus on the sheriff, and I'm even go this far. You need to focus on your district attorney. Because the district attorney have real strong relations when it comes to the police and with judges. You need to focus on DAs, you need to focus on your mayors, and you need to focus on your sheriffs. If you can get those three positions with some good integral people, you will be fine. Now, don't get me wrong. That is not I'm not saying that's gonna get rid of everything, but I put it this way, you'll have accountable leadership. Right. Then, because when you get mayor, a DA, and a sheriff who care about folks on the same page, they're gonna go and look at their police practices in terms of how they train. Like, for example, it's no secret that they spend more hours shooting than they do learning how to de-escalate a outrage in situation. That's no secret. We know that. Okay, so you are trained to shoot, but you're not trained to know that everybody has different personalities. Everyone isn't knowing how to outrage. So what's going on? We're not putting money towards mental health. My personal opinion, I told an officer the other day, I said, do y'all even have a mental health clinician that's like stationed in your local departments or anywhere that y'all team up with? Because I'll give you a prime example, and I know they don't mind me sharing their story because they put it on Facebook Live. In my county, Moore County, the Womacks, they have Lakeisha and Lanisha Womack. They actually have an autistic brother, and every now and then his autism is bad. It's bad, and he had a little episode in the community. So the judge tried to say they were going to give him 18 months or something like that, but he has a mental health condition. Mm-hmm. So you think incarcerating him is going to fix that? Mm-mm. When his time is up, he's back out there. So getting back to the point, so you need to focus on those three elections. Main ones, you need to focus on your mayor, you need to focus on your district attorney, and you need to focus on your county sheriff. Because those are going to be the three power players in those three elections. None of those are appointed. They're elected. Those three elections are really going to shape. And so when people start to realize, because see, those are in those elections that nobody talk about. Everybody focuses on those big ones. But if they truly knew the power of local elections, That's going to motivate you to vote.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Like faces, vote them out.
Right, we talked about that last week, and Blakely mentioned another key position in voting is the judge.
And the judges.
Yeah, we don't really talk about those things. Mr. Blakely?
Listen, can you hear me first of all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to just take this time. I'm not going to talk long because, again, we have the YDNC president on tonight. If I can just deal with a few things from a technicality standpoint, that is the only reason that I even jumped on tonight, because I want people to understand something. What he said, all of this from a community base is true. But Mr. President, if you can help me, because I sit with the Vance County Democratic Party, from the technicalities of our language, of how things are given. I want to have a good conversation with you, sir, about how information is given when it gets to not just these elected officials, but also about our caucuses, how important it is from a technical standpoint for us to have caucuses in our communities. We can also have our young teens organizations from a technical standpoint. We can have our young people to be assistants with the Board of Elections. And this is the reason that I jumped on tonight, because I want to get to that point where our president here can really dive into that, because he has to deal with that. He spoke on some things earlier that I would just technicalities that I want to just bring up when it comes to our precincts and understanding our precincts and the important role that plays in information getting to the constituents. And I'm using the technicality of language because I know that most common people don't use that language. And
true. That's true.
And you have to be in the working of the political and governmental structure, in order to understand those things. I can say, if I was to say right now to the president, well, how we look at on the House, the State House of Representative District Executive Committee, he would know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right. But Mr. If I can, because what you're saying is so powerful.
Yes, sir.
And I would love to ask Mr. President this. I haven't done it in a while, but I want to do it tonight, because what Blakely said, I think he was hinting at something important. I'm from Philadelphia, and my movie Philadelphia with Denzel Washington, he's an attorney, and there's a scene in which he's talking to a witness, and he says, explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old.
Right.
Explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old, because there may be someone, I think a lot of times we assume that people know the technicalities.
Okay.
Right.
Explain it like I'm a 6-year-old. What exactly is a caucus? What is a Black caucus? Because someone may not know, and we assume.
So the way, go ahead.
Oh, no. Listen, I yield all of that to you tonight, Sir President. I promise you have it.
Absolutely. And I would equate to it this way, to a 6-year-old. So imagine like a club at school.
Mm-hmm.
All clubs are not the same, just like all sports aren't the same. If you want to run, there's track and field. If you want to go tackle somebody, there's football. If you want to more so use body weight, there's wrestling. If you're good with a racket, there's tennis.
Mm-hmm.
Each sport requires its own set of rules and its own boundaries because it's specific to that sport. But notice that while they're different, they all equate back to an athlete, someone who trains. You all train really hard. It all goes back to you having supporters. It all goes back to when you're dealing with those, some of the main traits, regardless of sport: discipline, hard work, putting in, making sure you know how to cooperate with others. So regardless of sport, you have the same principles in place in terms of what you learn, regardless of sport. Now, with that, when you look at caucuses, again, just imagine them. Well, typically we don't like to use the word clubs, kind of gives off the sense of elitism, but just imagine it as a group of people who share a common interest, who want to advance a common purpose, but you are a group that is a subset of a much larger group. So let me use it this way. If I was talking to the faith community, the auxiliaries of your churches, you have the deacon board, the women board, you have the young people. I'm with the Millennial Ministry of Mind. You have your hospitality committee. You have your fried chicken committee, but you all have one pastor.
Fried chicken committee.
You all go to one church.
Fried chicken committee.
And listen, the president ought to throw down. I'm just saying. So so you have all these subsets in churches, but you're in one building under one form of leadership. All right, same God, different auxiliaries. So the outreach, the young people may go do something that maybe the senior auxiliary can't do, but you're all still together. So that is the simple way of what I can say for caucuses. So for example, the African American caucus, if you look at Congress, I believe, Blakely, I went back and looked at the video last week. I think you hinted at this last week when it came to the Congressional African American, the Congressional Black Caucus.
Yes,
that's what Representative Bass. So
yes, California.
Right, of California. So you take that caucus, right? So we have the Latino caucus. What are they? Or Latinx. I think they're changing their name now. Latinx caucus. All right. They're more so advancing issues that pertain to that community.
Absolutely.
Black African American caucus pertaining to that community. Women's caucus. But here's the thing. But they all come back under the umbrella of the Democratic Party. They're just focusing on the specifics of that group. And the reason we have caucuses is not so that people feel isolated. It's actually so that people feel included. Because here's the thing. Oftentimes people feel like there's no place for them, or there's no place for them to just let down their hair and just talk with someone else who understands their language. For example, yesterday, the state party, we're actually, in fact, because I just voted on that yesterday as well, we're getting ready to form with the North Carolina Democratic Party an interfaith caucus the very first time, because I'm getting ready to serve on that. Just got off that call yesterday. What does that mean? Even though I'm a Christian, I'll be working with Muslims, I'll be working with Jews, I'll be working with agnostics, but there may or may not, we're in discussions about that, if there are little mini subsets of folks. Again, you're all part of the same party, but you may have certain language. Like you said, we're all politicos, so I can use certain terms on here that y'all get, but I can't say that with other folks. Right. So that's a simple way of how I would explain caucus. I know I've given like 5 different ways, but I try to give 3 to 5 different ways to explain something, and you pick which one makes the most sense to you.
Now, I need to open up a can of worms, because Bishop always gets a chance to open up the can of worms. But went back, because like I said, my role is the historian. I went back and I was checking out our governmental system, and our governmental system is built on the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And when the Constitution did not address things that was happening at that point, then they formed amendments to the Constitution. Well, long story short, going back to the history of it, they never knew what they were ever. They fought the Civil War, but they never had a plan what you were going to do with millions of African slaves. Mm-hmm. So then you had to upgrade them from that 3/4 of a man to the fact that you are a full man, okay? And that you have to be, we hold these truths to be self-evident that mm-hmm. all men are created equal. Okay, I got you on that. So they had to allow for the vote. So the 14th Amendment allowed for blacks to vote. Mm-hmm. Then you jump down, the 15th Amendment allowed you to vote despite your race. You jump on down, you got some other amendments that allowed 18-year-olds to vote. Then you got other amendments that allowed women to vote. But the founding fathers had a problem with something. And then, Mr. Blakely, you have brought up this word before when you said gerrymandering, because we hadn't said anything about gerrymandering. We might have to have another show entirely on the concept of gerrymandering. So the founding fathers knew that the people in the United States have a tendency to clump, okay? And that all of the states would not be equally represented, and therefore they could not let the popular vote be the one that elected the president. So give it to us like we're 6 years old. Okay. What is the Electoral College, and how does my vote become contingent to their vote? That's what I want to know.
Before you answer that, let me add on to what she's saying. This is what we're hearing is the problem with a lot of younger voters who are saying from ever since elementary school to the dog catcher, whoever get the most votes win. Mm-hmm. If this Electoral College, if Hillary had 3 million votes more and she didn't win, my vote doesn't count. That's their view. So I want to add that, and you can answer that question.
Right. So I'll put it to you this way. The United States Electoral College is a name that's used to describe the official 538 presidential electors who come together every 4 years during the presidential election to give their official votes for president and vice president of the United States, usually voting for the popular vote that's for their state. Okay. Right. So
in some states,
I'm trying to say a mind of a 6-year-old.
It's kind of complicated, because in some states, that's what they call the battleground states.
Right.
Some states, if the popular vote determines all of the electoral votes, some states, the popular vote doesn't necessarily determine the electoral votes, and the electorate can basically vote their own conscience.
Right.
So it's not even, and that's why some people have even entertaining an amendment that will let the presidency be based on the popular vote and not electoral. So
when Americans, and I'll put it this way, and this kind of goes in what's the difference between the Electoral College and the popular vote. Mm-hmm. When American voters cast ballots in a general presidential election, like what we're going to see in 50 some odd days, they are choosing electors and telling them which candidate they think their state's electors should support.
Right.
The national popular vote, on the other hand, is the sum of all the votes cast in a general election nationwide. Okay, so Hillary Clinton had received more of the one vote per person. So the popular vote, she received more of the popular vote, more than 3 million plus more.
3 million, right?
Okay, than Donald Trump. But when you look at the states itself, okay, how did each state vote? And that gets into a whole conversation talking about swing states. All right. That gets into a conversation about swing states, and most people don't even know the basic definition of a swing state. All that North Carolina is a swing state. Usually swing states like the purple states. Those are states that typically can go either way. So and a majority of them are East Coast. So like Florida, you look at North Carolina, you look at Wisconsin, you look at Michigan, you start to look at a lot of those. And I think I saw something the other day where Georgia, and probably, I wouldn't doubt it if Georgia is becoming
right.
I wouldn't doubt it if eventually Georgia
and Texas as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it if I was shocked with some of those elections for the fact that Stacey got as close as she did. Lets us know something when she was running for governor. But that's the difference there in terms of the technicality of what the Electoral College is and how that operates. And again, now, and while I'm thinking about it, and that also ties back in because you mentioned the keyword of gerrymandering. That's a whole other show by itself. But that also goes back to voter apathy as well, because people already know that if you have been in North Carolina, we were the center of the national news of all the political jokes, because our case made it all the way up to the United States Supreme Court with looking at our maps and how it was racially and certainly done.
Right.
To keep folks from voting. And that was, I think, a stain on our state and the fact that was done. And so now that we have more fair maps, I believe, because think about this, here's how you know the gerrymander. North Carolina has 13 congressional districts, okay? 13 congressional districts. Before the maps were redrawn, it was 10-3. Okay, you had 10 Republicans and you had 3 Democrats. That in the House alone, because every state gets 2 senators. So that don't even sound right. So now, when it was done correctly, now you got folks like Mark Walker who said, "I'm not going to even run." You got folks like Mark Meadows who then sold out. Now he became President Trump's chief of staff because he knew he wasn't going to win. So now you're forced, because here's what I love about the new maps. You are forced to go in spaces you kept ignoring. Mark Walker would have more, and Ted Budd, if I'm not mistaken, in 13th district. Now you have to go to HBCUs. You kept ignoring them because you're looking at A&T. You're looking at Bennett, and that's in Greensboro alone. Now you got to go to these schools that you kept ignoring.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to go into these other communities that you said the votes aren't there, but because you have stained yourself for so long, they just went on and just said, I ain't gonna even bother to run it. And so again, but I just want to throw that in there, free of charge. So I'm gonna throw that in there. But I did want to make mention, but that is the difference there between the Electoral College, what that is, and what it means to our country. And there's a lot of conversations about folks that just want to rid of it completely. Honestly, I feel like that conversation has always been had.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, listen, this is one of the things that, as a history teacher with the middle school, and the children are beginning to in 2016, I retired in 2017, and I am going to tell you why. The 2016 election made me retire. I was done because there was no longer any way I could say to my children that that our political system worked. I had taught them. They knew about the Constitution. They knew about this. They knew about that. But they also looked at someone who was morally corrupt get elected in the chief position in the United States. Children came back to school the next day crying. The Latino children said, well, we'll be leaving because if we don't leave now, we'll be forced out, whatever. So I could no longer say to them, this was the land of the free, home of the brave, because it's like you said, what do we tell our children now? If we don't somehow rebuild these relationships, and you said it so good before, and then even some of the things that Mr. Blakely said, we have to build the relationship. What are we going to tell our children? Okay, because they're the ones that's going to have to vote. You're talking about voter apathy. You're talking about the structure of our society. We have a republic that is set upon a democratic republic, and unless something happens to get us out of chaos mode. Now, here's one more question, or here's your can of worm, because I'm talking to all three preachers too. All right, here's my can of worms for you. We are literally being told from our pulpits. Come on now, you know where I'm getting ready to go.
I see where we're going.
Literally being told from our pulpits that if we vote Democratic, we are voting to kill babies. We are voting to destroy the family. We are voting to move forward the LGBTQ initiative. And these are the things that you're saying. There's many people that believe, like, I don't believe in abortion, but I am a Democrat. I believe in rebuilding the family structure, but I also believe in strong public schools and not putting the war machine over our public schools.
Right.
See, and I also believe that once you get a child here, you don't put them in a cage. How about let's feed them some of them? Okay.
Yeah. You know, and we're also being told not to vote. You know,
and we're also being told not to vote.
We had one of our guests. One of our first guests on the show when we first started, Bishop Noel Jones, had a quote that was so funny and yet powerful. He said that Republicans believe in pro-life until you're born.
Until you're born, and
they
want to help take care of you. The funding. And I don't know what Bible they reading, because my scriptures tell me that if you take care of your poor, which is Social Security. And I don't know how they're interpreting. They got that drunk interpretation. I need some sober interpretation, because something just isn't making sense. Go ahead, Blakely, and I'll continue. Go ahead.
Down at the bottom.
I know that we are just so adamant about our issues, but I just do want to remind us of time for tonight, so that we stay in. I'm gonna be the parliamentarian and keep us in time.
Listen, I need that. I appreciate that so much. I kid you not, my board members know I need that. So to get to your point, Minister Richardson, hold on, I'm trying to remember. You had just made a really good point. I'm trying to remember what that was.
We're being told that you're not Christian.
Thank you. That's all I think it was pulpit. See, but comes right back to him just like that. Okay, so here's the thing. Don't do that. That's number one, because here's how I have rationalized it, and here's part of the process of how I became a Democrat. Folks don't know. I actually opened my Bible and I wrote down the scriptures. I wrote down the issues that were pertinent to me. I wanted to kind of see what the parallels were, because that relates to my faith and I value what that means. And taking care of your neighbor, loving yourself as you love your neighbor, taking care of children, taking care of old folks. These are things that the Democratic Party and legislation that we fight for, and that's more so on that side. So when you have people in powerful positions and you are using bullying tactics, okay, first of all, here's how I rationalize it in one simple statement, and I tell people, take it how you want it. The reason I say God is pro-choice, and I'm not talking about abortion, I'm just saying in general, is because of free will. If he wants, now here's why. Now I tell people, take it the way you want it. He's pro-choice by way of free will, because if we were robots, we wouldn't need choice. We would just be automatically tuned to do whatever. So the fact that we can even make a decision, okay, now you base it off your own moral conscience and what that relates to you and your walk with him. But what you can't do is sit here and dictate how folks are, because my thing is, now once upon a time, and we don't have time to go back in old Christian history, because we can actually definitely take that route, and I can see some of those older ways. But pastors also don't understand that you are a pillar of the community. People look to you. Churches, we help tutor kids. We open up daycare centers. We help feed the poor. We help Salvation Army and American Red Cross during times of natural disasters. So people look to us for help. So now imagine how it feels when you're sitting here telling people don't vote. Okay, how about don't vote? But didn't Jesus say whose face is on the coin? Pay Caesar.
And render unto Caesar what is.
Here's my thing. We have gotten, and this goes back to being numbed and spoiled. We've gotten so spoiled to being a democracy. How about go to a country where you can't vote for nobody and you got to do what you're told, or you got your head cut off? Go try that and then see how this works for you.
That's it.
Go try that and see how this works for you. People have died for this and that would love for this, and it's just a slap in the face to their sacrifice for that. So the fact that even pastors would say that. Now, what I do always tell pastors is, because typically, and I think even with law to an extent, pastors have to remain neutral. Invite both Democrat, Republican, invite them to your church. You need to know who's representing you, and you are fair that way.
That's it.
But how you vote individually, don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, Mr. President.
Mr. President, Mr. Blakely said he was a parliamentarian, but I've got the button to mute and cut off, so I'm going to do that. We've been on here over an hour, and I told you before we came on our pre-show that time was going to fly, and it has. What I would like to do as we head out is to give you the floor to have our final say tonight, as well as let these young people know what they can do. We are 53 days from the election, how they can get in contact with you, how they can get involved in the Young Democrat of not just North Carolina, because the show is all over the United States. We got viewers in Ohio, Florida, Arizona. They're watching from all over. How can they get involved? And we'll let you have the final say tonight.
Well, again, thank you so much, everyone, just for the wonderful invitation. The virtual hospitality has just been great. Again, there's over 300 million people in the country, and you could have any of them on, and you chose me, so I don't take that lightly at all. I'll start on the back end. If you would like to get involved with the Young Democrats in North Carolina, head over to ydnc.org. There is a link there, or a tab there that says Join YDNC. And again, use that link. It'll guide you and direct you to be a part of the organization, from forming a chapter to joining a chapter to being an at-large member. All of that information is there. Our bylaws are there so that you know how we govern ourselves accordingly. All of that is there. Again, no secrets. It's all there. It's very open and transparent for the public to use and to utilize. Again, the Young Democrats of North Carolina is for young folks between the ages of 18 and 36. We are the largest Democratic Party millennial auxiliary arm of our state party, and we are the founding state of Young Democrats of America. And so we do have, I just got back virtually from the national meeting, and we just brought in Oregon, the state of Oregon. So we are now we're almost in all 50 states. I think we're like 46, 48, somewhere in there. So we are the founding father state of the entire national organization itself. And we take great pride in that in North Carolina. It's founded in 1928, right there on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill. And so the final thing I'll tell folks is this, and it was actually something I tell my board members, my executive committee members all the time, because I'm very concerned about, their mental health, make sure, because this can be very pressing work sometimes. So I always remind them of this. When we were kids, we used to play a game called freeze tag. And what the purpose of the game was, essentially everybody starts running, but one person is deemed it. When that one person who is deemed it touches someone else, that person freezes. And then they keep on touching people until you want to ultimately try to freeze as many people as you can. But the way you get someone who is frozen from being frozen is you get somebody who is on fire to touch somebody who's frozen. By doing that, it keeps the person who is trying to freeze people, it tires them out to the point they want to quit. What am I telling you? All of this is just simply a big game of freeze tag, and you have oppressors and suppressors who are constantly trying to freeze folks. But if you have the fire of justice and equality, if you have that fire that rages and burns inside of you, then you need to go, because these people have frozen people. They have frozen them with fear, frozen them with voter suppression, frozen them with scare tactics. So if you have that fire in you, that means you haven't been frozen. Go touch somebody and unfreeze them so they can go run and unfreeze somebody else, so they can run and go and freeze somebody else. And so I simply just have a simple phrase I have here in North Carolina: simply flame on.
Flame on.
So that is the message I leave with you, your viewers, is flame on.
Flame.
Keep the fire burning. Flame on. If you see someone, and here's how you can identify frozen people. Well, I don't know if I want to vote. They're frozen. Well, I don't think I'm gonna vote this time. It's frozen. My vote don't count. They're frozen. Well, how are we gonna do this? They ain't frozen. They're curious. Now that's a moment to educate. So you need to be aware of that. Now that's a moment to educate. Other than that, you keep running. So, so I tell people, I can tell you a whole lot of stuff, and we can talk for hours. But at the end of the day, flame on.
Flame on. Man, thank you so much. I'm telling you, on behalf of everyone watching, thank you. Those of you that don't know, Mr. Wilson isn't just someone we just found on the street. He has some clout. Name dropping doesn't always get anywhere, but he just had a meeting on Wednesday, I believe it was, with Senator Cory Booker. And so the fact that you met with Senator Booker and you took time out to meet with us tonight does our heart and everyone's heart very well, and we really appreciate it. We're proud of you. And
thank you so much. And I'm going to make sure I bring up, because I'll be speaking with Representative Val Demings on Saturday. We're working with folks like Mayor Pete. I just heard back from his office today. We're bringing in some folks here into this state to reach out to these young people and really get them energized. Because again, what happened in 2016 cannot happen this year. In North Carolina, we had over 400,000, I think millions of people who did not vote.
Right.
Millions, but that cannot happen again. So I'm pulling out the big guns. I'm using every network that I have in the faith community and secular. We're going to get this job done.
We're going to get it done. And just like with church, that the older voice can't reach the younger voice as well as the younger voice can reach it. So we're trying to get to that younger voice. And
I tell people this, I always advise even my younger folks, we got to go. Our younger folks is find someone that's of a different generation, because we got to bridge these generational divides. Someone that's older than us are not our enemy. They see things differently because they travel roads that we never had to travel on. And thank God for it, because some of the stuff they travel, we wouldn't be able to make it.
That's right.
So don't burn those bridges. Build those coalitions.
Yes.
Okay, I'm done.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Minister Kim. Thank you for joining us. This was a powerful show.
I love it.
Thank you, my friend. And hopefully we'll get back on again in the future. We're going to keep pounding this until we see some some results.
Listen, my hope is that next time I come on, we'll have a new president. And we would have sustained our governor, Governor Cooper. We have kept our first Black woman Chief Justice and Chief Justice Sherry Beasley. That we'll have a new North Carolina senator in Washington by way of Cal Cunningham. We need some new leadership.
Yes. All right. Let's do it. It's a plan. I'm gonna say, like I had a guest on not too long ago, and I said in my Bernie Mac imitation, "Y'all heard him, America. Y'all heard him."
Ooh, that's good. That boy good. That is good.
Thank you, my friend. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank y'all so much. Love y'all. Y'all take care.
Love you too.
Thank you. Have a good day. Good weekend.
Thank you, Minister Kim, for joining us again, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Bishop, we got it going on around.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. What a powerful show, what a powerful message, powerful guest. Let's do this. Flame on. Flame on. Burn, baby. Burn. Burn. Flame on. Tonight, I'm not going to hold you long, but tonight when you go to bed tonight, look yourself in the mirror. Again, don't forget, I need you to join me with a $7 donation, a $7 gift to help feed the homeless over the holiday season. Don't forget that. But when you go to bed tonight, I need you to do something for me. I need for you, my friends, to look yourself in the mirror, look yourself right in the eyes, and ask yourself a question. Did I do something tonight to flame on? Did I do something to work toward my purpose? Or did I simply waste another day? We'll see you right here next week with another guest, as we're going to keep pounding and keep working and keep flaming until we see some results. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. We'll see you next week right here on Sign of the Times.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Good night, everyone.